Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Part 5 Vedas. Vedas, the root of all religion. Among the 14 books on Dharma Pramana, the main authority is that of the Vedas, namely Rig, Yajus, Sama, and Atharvana, the first four of the 14 in Chaturdasa Vidya Sthanas. In the balance 10, 6 are known as Angam or part, and the rest 4 are Upangam or subparts. A man or woman has many body parts. Similarly, if the Vedas are linked to a Veda Purusha or Veda Mata having Shat Angam or 6 parts and 4 subparts, the Shat Angam are Sikshai, Vyakaranam, Chandas, Niruktam, Jyotisham and Kalpam. The 4 subparts or Upangams are Mimamsa, Nyayam, Puranam and Dharma Shastram. All told, Vedas are the most important. The balance 10 are Vidyas recognized as Shastras. If we consider the total as 18, we should include the Ayurvedam, Arthashastram, Dhanurvedam and Gandharva Vedam. All of them have evolved out of the Vedas only. Vedas should be learnt with the parts and subparts. This is referred as Sa plus Anga plus Upanga plus Adhyayanam, leading to the creation of the word Sangopanga Adhyayanam. Actually, this word was meant for the study of the Vedas with all its parts and subparts, though nowadays people have forgotten the names of Vedas and its parts. The word Sangopanga has come to stay to mean exhaustive coverage of any subject. Though the word Sangopangam has gained currency, it is sad to note that people do not even know the names of Vedas, its parts and subparts. Vedam is the main central reference point. All other subjects have evolved out of Vedas and are organized around it. If you ask me as to what is the basic root book of authority for Hinduism, I will say they are the Vedas. They are our Bible, Quran, Zendavesta and Guru Granth Sahib. Though thus I am using the names of other religions' master treatise names to describe the Vedas, I should also emphasize that Vedas precede all other such books by hundreds of thousands of years. I would not be far wrong if I say that most of these other books have partaken of the noble ideas of the Vedas. Lot of such parallels can be drawn. Whether anyone agrees with this or not, there is a tradition to call those books as Christian Vedam or Muslims Vedam or Parsis Vedam. In South India, Christians do aver their Bible to be Satya Vedam. Talking about Vedas, I am at a quandary as to where to start and end. They are so vast in magnitude and so deep in intricacies of content. As Apastamba Sutram says, Pramanam Vedacha. Everything about this religion are dependent upon the 4 Vedas. From very olden times in Tamil Nadu, Manu Dharma Shastras have been held in high esteem. The same has been the case elsewhere in India too. But in Tamil Nadu, there was a Chola king with the epithet Manu Nidhi Shoran. Because of his strict loyalty to the tenets of justice as given in Manu Dharma Shastras, once it so happened that the prince drove his chariot too recklessly in the marketplace, causing the death of a calf. The mother cow caused the bell of justice to ring by pulling on the rope with her mouth. The king, having come to know of the incident, ordered that his son should be run over by a chariot, thereby maintaining the highest level of justice, uncaring for not only the caste or creed, but equality between all life forms. Thus, we have come to accept Manu Nidhi Shastra as the authority for all matters related to justice. What does that book say? Manu declares in it, Vedo Akhilo Dharma Moolam. He has said that for all matters of dharma, the basic root authority is Vedas eternally. Whatever Vedam says, we should abide with it verbatim. We should not transgress Vedas and accept it in letter and spirit. We have tradition to ask when something is thrust on us if that thing is the Vedavak. We had a belief that if it was Vedavak, then we cannot have a say. Thus, the Vedas have been the dominating and binding factor and the act of law for many thousands of years. Anadi Aporshayam. What is Anadi? We cannot say as to what was the date for Vedas. Anadi means that it is without a beginning, that there is nothing prior to it. So, it is forever too. How can that be? A book has to be written by one or two or many. Old Testament contains the saying of many prophets. The New Testament contains the Upadesha as given by Jesus Christ. Quran informs us of what Muhammad has said. Thus all the books must have been of some date in the past, and before that time such a book was not there. Similarly, Vedas too must have been said or written by someone, say thousands of even lakhs of years back. But to claim that it is Anadi is evidently wrong, is it? Is it not so? There must have been a time when Vedas was not there. Yes, I agree that it is natural for such questions to arise. It is true that Vedas had been written by some human beings, then to claim that it is Anadi would be wrong. We are thinking that the Vedas were written by some rishis. In our books on history, it says so. Not only that, Vedas are composed of many suktas. Su plus uktam would mean well said. Like Suguna means good qualities and Sulochana means pleasing for the eyes of having good eyes. When these suktas are mentioned in the Vedas, for each sukta, it mentions the rishi, chandas or meter and a particular deity for that. So, as the Veda mantras are related to so and so rishi, we are likely to construe them to be the authors. Moreover, while mentioning the names of the rishis, there is a mention of the gotra and the lineage, for example, Agastyo Maitra Varuni, meaning Agastya the son of Mitra and Varuni. Thus, each mantra is in the name of some rishi, which should mean that at the time of the rishi's parents, the mantra could not have been there. So, is it not so that Anadi would be a misnomer? The mistake lies in the misconception that the rishis were the authors. Vedas have another qualification in addition to being Anadi, that they are Aupurshayam, meaning non-human. If a man or rishi had written it or said it on his own, then it would have been Paurushayam. Apaurushayam would mean that the mantras are not the creations or utterances of human beings. Had they been the authors of the mantras, they would have been called the mantrakartas, but they are called the mantra drashtas or seers and not creators. What does this statement, Columbus discovered America, mean? Does it mean that he created America? No. He revealed the already existing America to the world. Similarly, Archimedes, Newton, and Einstein, etc., none of them created the laws of nature. A stone thrown high up in the air does not fall to the ground because Newton said so. These scientists understood the existing laws of nature and revealed it to the world at large. Similarly, the rishis saw or perceived the already existing mantras, understood them, and gave it to the world. The mantras were there much before their time. They revealed it to the world for the benefit of all. So, it is but natural to take their names with a sense of gratitude. When we say that rishis are the mantra drashtas or seers of the mantras, where were the mantras before that? If we call them as anadi, did they come into existence at the time of initial creation? Where were they before they were found? If you say that they were created at the start of creation, it would mean that Paramatma created them. Then did he lose them? Then did the rishis search and recover each part? But if you say so, still Vedas cannot be anadi because there is a clear account of when this present creation came into being. The present yuga is Kali Yuga, preceded by Dwapara, Treta, and Krita Yugas, respectively. Kali is the last for 4,32,000 years. The yugas preceding were twice, thrice, and four times that amount of time as Kali, respectively. Thus, one Chatur Yuga is 43,20,000 years. 1,000 such Chatur Yugas make a day of Brahma. His night is equal. As per this calculation, the present Brahma is just about 50 years of age. Whenever for any karma function, we mention the exact date as per this macrocosmic calculation in so and so year, month, moon, paksha, day, and yamam. The point I am making is that even in cosmic proportions, there is a time limit. Even for Brahma, the creator, so even he is not anadi. His creation, this universe, is also not anadi. Then, what is the meaning of saying that the Vedas are anadi? Even before the creation, Paramatma is and Brahma was not. That Paramatma, that is Brahman, is beyond time and space, forever, everywhere. That is anadi, everything came into being from that. Instead of doing things himself, he created through Brahma, sustained through Vishnu, and dissolved through Rudra. Then the Brahma, Vishnu, Rudra are also dissolved or reabsorbed, and the process of recreation commences. That is why there is an age for Brahma. The present Brahma, once he completes his 100 years of his scale, his life will be over and another Brahma will come into being. He will have to start the process of evolution and creation once again. Does it mean that Paramatma will create the Vedas again before creating the next Brahma? We can discern from the Shastras that Vedam was already there before Srishti or creation. Before, it is said that Brahma himself did the job of creation by using the Veda mantras only. I will elaborate on how the act of creation was done using the mantras, which are only sounds. But here my intention is to insist that before rishis, before creation, before Brahma, the Vedas were already there. Brahma himself could carry out the act of creation with the help of Vedas only. So it is said in the Bhagavata and other Puranas while describing how creation was done. So, is this the reason for calling Vedas Anadi? Can we take it that Vedam and Paramatma both are Anadi? This is also wrong. If we say that before Srishti or creation, God created the Vedas, then again it means that there was a time gap when Vedam was not yet created. Then to call it Anadi is a lie. If we say that both Ishvara or Paramatma and Vedas are Anadi, then neither of them could have created the other. To say that there were two Anadis is also wrong. Everything seems to be total confusion, confounded. Without being created by God and without being separate from God, how can Vedas be Anadi? For this big question mark, Vedam itself provides the answer. In a part of Veda, that is in Brihadaranyaka Upanishad 11.2.4.10, it says that Rik, Yajus, Sama, Atharva Vedas are God's breath. The word used is nisvasitam, meaning breath. Can we be alive without our breath? We cannot be. Is it not so? So Vedas are God's breath. He is Anadi. He is forever. So is Vedam, as his breath is also forever Anadi. A point to note that even God is not mentioned as the creator of Vedas, as we cannot claim to have created our breath. From the time we are there, our breath is also there. Similarly, our Vedas and God. We cannot say that He created or wrote them. Vidyaranya Swamigal, Shankaracharya of Sringeri Peetham of this century, who wrote Bhashyam on Vedas, while assuming his own guru as God, says, Yasya nihi swasitam Veda, meaning that for whom Vedas are the breath. Here too there is no claim that his guru as God authored the Vedas. Bhagwan Sri Krishna in Gita says, I am the one to be known through all the Vedas. Vedaischa sarvai aham eva Vedyaha. Having said so, he does not claim to be Vedakrit, but only Vedanta Krit or Vedavit, thereby to mean not the creator of Veda, but only the one who has finalized the end principles of Veda. As he said in Gita, in Bhagavatam 2, nowhere does God claim that he is the author or creator of Vedas. There is a mention of the fact that the Vedas were revealed in his heart like the lightning on a cloudy sky. The word used in Spuranam. Spuranam could be translated as self-revelation and not creation. The original Rishi who could recognize all the Veda mantras was Brahma. It is God who revealed all that to him. How did he teach all that? Was it a talk or lecture? The first shloka in Bhagavatam says, Tene Brahma Brudaya Adi Kavaye. That means a communication from heart to heart. That means also the Vedas are all the time in the heart of God, the Paramatma, and he did not create it. He only had to decide to impart all the knowledge of the Vedas to Brahma, and all the data transfer is instantly complete. With those sounds of the Vedas, Brahma started his business of creation. Devaram in Tamil calls Ishvara Vediya Veda Gita. It further says Sandoka Samam Odum Vayanai, mentioning the names of the various branches of the Vedas. Devaram says that he is all the time singing those portions of the Vedas. His breath itself is singing only. Our breath is known as Hamsa Geetam. Thus, Ishvara's music of his breath is the Vedam. Devaram further goes on to describe Ishvara wearing the Poonul, with white stripes of the ashes effulgent all over his body, repeatedly bathing, as he is known to be too fond of repeatedly bathing Abhisheka Priyaha. Chanting the various parts of the Vedas, we have to wonder if Parmeshwara himself is the greatest Ganapadigal. But nowhere does the Tevaram ever say that God is creating the Vedas. Vaishnava Divya Prabandham too talks of Vedas and Veda Yagnas quite a lot, but I do not remember if Perumal is described to be chanting the Vedas mentioned anywhere in Nalaira Divya Prabandham, Pugarendi Pulavar, talking about Mahavishnu's prompt response of what? When the elephant Gajendra called for him shouting, Adimulame says, Vedathin mun nindran, Velum mudale ena aழைப்ப en என்றான். Herein I do not think that the phrase Vedathin mun nindran should be construed as his being earlier to Vedam in time, but as occurring at the start of all Vedas. Look at how Perumal's procession takes place. First, there are the Tiruvalmuri Oduvar's party, followed by the Utsavar on a palanquin. Then come all the Ganapadigal chanting the Vedas. Thus, also he is Vedathin Mun Nindran. In the Agamas of Vaishnavas and their Puranas, nowhere does it say that Mahavishnu created the Vedas. Often there is a description of God as Yajna Swarupi or Veda Swarupi. The eagle or Garuda Vahana of God is said to be Veda Swarupam. In Purusha Suktam, which is part of the Veda, there is a mention of the birth of Vedas, but Purusha Suktam itself is too allegorical and symbolical to draw a direct meaning of the birth of Vedas. In it, the Parama Purusha is offered as a sacrificial oblation in which the spring season is the ghee, summer season is the samit, bundles of wood, autumn season is havis, offered in the yajna fire, and so on. These are practically understandable only to those who have soaked their life into the mantras. All told, the Shastras say that Vedam is Anadi. It is the breath of God in the form of those sounds of the mantras, using which Brahma created the world. All this will sound as so much bunkum to the so called modern minds, but on detailed analysis, it will be found to contain a very big scientific truth. I am not saying that religious matters have to be acceptable to the scientists and then only the common man should accept those. As our science and scientists cannot reach or comprehend that Paramatma principle and Siddhantam need not be brought into the purview of science, there may be many things in such discussion which seems most unscientific, but that does not mean that they are to be disregarded. But the point being considered here is how could the sounds of breath be mantras and how could anyone using them create the entire universe, and most importantly, how could such a statement become acceptable to science? Sound and creation. What is sound? Sound is vibrations or pulsations in air, says science. Atomic science and Einstein's theory says both in the microcosmic and macrocosmic worlds there is pulsation of stars and galaxies and subatomic particles. Everything is one and only Advaitam. Everything is a flow of electromagnetic energy. But why do they seem to be different? All the seeming difference is due to differences in the vibrations, says modern science. When there is vibration, there is sound. That sentence can be reworded to say that for a particular sound to be created, the corresponding vibration has to be there. In one energy field, when there are different vibrations, different animate and inanimate life forms and substances are created, says science. The religion says that the whole world has come into being from God's breath, that is Veda mantras. There are human beings and animals, their health, feelings, and sensations are influenced by the frequency of their breath. It may be noticed. The breath affects every cell in the body. Every cell is consuming oxygen and exhaling carbon dioxide. The vibrations of the movement of breath affects the health of the system. Those who regulate the breath suitably through yoga and pranayama maintain surprisingly healthy bodies. They can and do control their pulse and heart rate to such an extent that they can bring the whole sequence to a standstill when needed. They can control the blood flow in such a manner that they can stem the blood flow even when the arteries are cut. Then can stay in samadhi. They can stay in samadhi without a breath, even when buried underground. The poison of a scorpion or snake bite fails to affect them because of their breath control and control over the vibrations in the nadis or channels controlling the bodily and frequency of breath is important not only for the body but even for the control of mind and its health. The mind and its thoughts, breath and prana shakti or life force are all mutually interdependent. This is so due to the fact that the mind and prana or life force arise from the same source. Healthy and unhealthy thoughts thus are also dependent on the vibrations of the nadi. If you observe your own breath in the sanctum sanctorum of a temple or in the presence of a saint, you will notice that it's orderly and even, while simultaneously the thoughts are also quiet and peaceful. Compare this with how your breath is uneven when affected by anger or lust. Thus, our breath and thoughts are mutually interdependent and controllable. The nadi vibration will be different even between the happiness arising out of an activity of religious significance as against the happiness of sensual pleasures. Generally, the breath will be seen to be based on the right nostrils when the sense of elation is due to, say, singing of bhajans or psalms, while an erotic song is likely to activate breath through the left nostril. When we sit down to meditate, we will notice that as the mind is slowly settling down and as the oscillations of the mind are calming, the breath will be slow, steady, and balanced in both the nostrils. When the mind gets totally absorbed, the breath may even come to a standstill while the individual continues to be alive with complete bliss of awareness. The gross body, subtle mind, intellect, and awareness all depend on the flow of breath for birth, growth, and degradation. The proper swasha gati or flow of breath depends on how well we manage to control the inner vibrations. After all, these animate living things and inanimate matter come from the same source called God. So, for their birth, growth, and the end, the necessary vibrations have to happen in that Paramatma only. Is it not so? Brahman is Advaitam, non differentiating, unchanging, non vibrating, non pulsating, and all that. Let it be. With the indescribable, unmentionable, Anirvachaniyam, that is Maya Shakti, this Brahman is said to transform, transmute, and metamorph seemingly into so many life forms of living beings and inanimate matter. For the Maya Shakti, he is the Mayavi. So, all this has to be based on the vibrations on the Parabrahmam only. Though, despite all the apparent changes, it remains ever unaffected. Thus, in our view of the apparent relative world, vibrations are a reality. Randomly, the truth may remain unaffected by the seeming changes. You look at the movement of the sun and star galaxies to that of the planets and that of the growth of a grass or the play of the seasons or the life cycle of a mosquito, you wonder at so much order. Even the seemingly serious aberrations are only plays of entertainment value. If man is also part of the self same nature, even global warming and such man caused aberrations should be within the overall control of the powers that be, though that is no license for errant behavior on the part of humanity. It is this order that is instrumental in controlling all the conflicting forces of nature to cooperate for the welfare of living things. God seems to take some pleasure in letting some aberrations happen, Sometimes, somewhere, the rain fails. Elsewhere, there are floods or tsunami or some other catastrophe. In the enormous scale of dimensions, even these aberrations seem to be within limits. What does not seem to be within limits are the aberrations that the human mind is capable of. It goes hither and thither like the devil that it is. Though there is a lot of order and discipline in the entire length and breadth of the whole universe, the human mind alone behaves or rather misbehaves like a mad dog with no control whatsoever. Is there some method by which we could control the forces of nature when they are going astray? Is there some way that this human mind can be brought under some semblance of control if all things, materials and living things, have come into being as a result of the vibrations of sound waves, the errant nature, including our minds, can be brought under control to a modicum of discipline by use of the same sounds or mantras, that is, the Vedas. Through our breath, we can tune into the wavelength of Paramatma by way of yoga and get universal and personal benefits. There are sound waves beyond the hearing capabilities of the human ear in the lower and higher frequencies, but these waves can be amplified and made audible. The radio waves are an example. At the radio station, the audio waves are converted into radio waves for propagation through air and are reconverted into audible sound waves in the receiver sets. When I talk of this, it seems that modern science is not anti religion. It is rather helpful in making abstract ideas easier to comprehend. Say a few decades back, if some agnostic had objected to Veda Sabda and the sound waves of the vibrations of the nadi, we would not have been able to give any sensible reply. What the radio receiver can do, we can do one better. This can be done only by a concentrated, one minded, serious effort of tapasya to leave all diversions, distractions, and proclivities with the clarity of purpose that I shall know the truth at all costs is the requirement without the flimsiest element of self doubt or pride. However much we may persevere, if we have to understand it can only be by the grace of God. The great rishis, who are the mantra drishtas or seers, are those who have gone through extreme throes of tapasya and reached the soaring heights of pinnacles of excellence. Rishis could hear all the vibrations existing in nature. They could tune into specific frequencies, filtering all other unwanted emissions and static. Not only that, they could convert the vibrations into corresponding audio frequencies discriminable by the human ear. Thus, the vibrations of the breath of the Paramatma could be interpreted into Veda mantras. One point occurs to me. Vedam is also known as Shruti. Shruti is what is audible or heard. Srotam is the ear. Vedas were conveyed from generation to generation over millennia by way of mouth of the Guru to the ear of the Sishya and repetition by the mouth of the Sishya to the ear of the Guru for correction if need be. The rule was that these sounds were not to be written and read mainly so as to avoid errors due to the intricacies and nuances of pronunciation leading to variations in rhythm, sound, volume, and pitch. There are many sounds in the Vedas that cannot be correctly represented by the written script. They have to be heard and uttered. With that, each word or portions of the word are to be under or overemphasized or raised in pitch called Udattam, Anudattam or Swaritam. However much one may try to indicate these by diacritical marks, there can only be errors in pronunciation and there can be printing errors too. If there is a mistake in pronunciation, the meaning and effect can go totally awry. What can go wrong when the pronunciation goes awry is amply brought out by a story in Taittiriya Samhita in Veda itself. There was a carpenter by the name of Twasta. He wanted to get a son who could be powerful enough to destroy Indra. Due to an unintended error in pronunciation, his prayer had a totally opposite effect of his wife begetting a son who could be destroyed by Indra. So that is what happened. You might have noticed that a slight deviation in tuning the wavelength could mean an entirely different radio station or simply noise. Similarly, Veda's correct effect is dependent upon the correct pronunciation. That is why the fine tuning of the student was done by the Guru by repeated attentive hearing. These are the reasons why learning and practice of Vedas was not reduced to writing and reading. What is known as Sruti or heard in Sanskrit came to be referred as Eluda Kilavi or unwritten text in Tamil. There is one more reason why Vedas are referred as Sruti in Sanskrit. These sacred sounds that are not heard by the common man were first heard by the rishis. They did not hear about them from anyone else. They did not read about them. Since they heard them first, it is in the rightness of things that the Vedas were called the Srutis. Those rishis were the first to hear and see the Vedas. Seer in Tamil can be translated as Parpan, which is a name for the Brahmin caste. Okay, now the question arises as to whether they originally saw or heard the Vedas. If they saw it, then what language was it written in? These things are supposed to have happened much before the script such as Devanagari or Grantham or Brahmi could have been evolved. The answer to all these questions is that it is not just simply seeing or hearing, but a matter of perception. When they were much beyond the physical awareness level, their ears may not have heard anything, their eyes may not have seen anything, but in a flash they have the inner revelation. When we talk about someone who has had much experience, we say that he has seen much of life, don't we? To be able to do this, hearing and seeing, evidently the rishis had risen much above the humdrum ordinary levels of existence. Arjuna wanted to see the Vishwarupa of Sri Krishna. Arjuna could not have seen him with his normal eyes. At that time, Krishna Paramatma grants him the holistic vision. Divya Dadami, the Chakshu. Refer to Bhagavad Gita, chapter 11, Shloka 8. So the rishis as mantra drishtas evidently had divine vision and hearing capabilities. It is not that Vedas are purely beneficial for life in the world only, but they have mantras of infinitely immense value. As a man diligently retraces his way back home, he can go back to his very source of existence. Similarly, we can all return to our source through the Vedas. As we keep going back to our origins of how we came into being, it will efficiently take us back to the spring of our very being. The Mahavakyas, 4 in numbers, one each from each Veda, the Pranavam and the mantras such as Asato ma Sadgamaya, Tamaso ma Jyotirgamaya, Mrityo ma Amritam Gamaya are all such mantras. I came to say all this to underline the fact that Vedas have not been written by anyone. They were not the works of the rishis. Paramatma himself did not sit down and write the Vedas on any paper or palm leaf. Om Shri Mahaperiva Sharanam.